The notification appeared on 170 million phones simultaneously. TikTok will no longer be available in your region starting January 19th, 2025. Within hours, America's digital landscape would transform into a battleground where national security, free speech, and generational warfare collided in ways that would reshape how democracy itself functions in the age of global technology. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was streaming live when the ban went into effect. Her final TikTok video, posted at 11:58 p.m. on January 18th, would become the most watched political content in the platform's history. Speaking directly to her camera, in a style that had made her a generational icon, she delivered what many would later call a digital declaration of war against the forces trying to silence young America. Meanwhile, Candace Owens was preparing her own response to the TikTok shutdown, but her reaction would frame the same event as a victory for American sovereignty against foreign manipulation. The platform that AOC saw as a vital tool for democratic engagement, Owens viewed as a weapon of mass distraction deployed by America's greatest strategic rival. The stage was set for a confrontation that would force every American to choose between security and freedom, between protection and expression, between fear of China and faith in the First Amendment. The TikTok ban had been building momentum since 2020, but the final push came from intelligence reports that would later be partially declassified. According to these documents, Chinese authorities had been using TikTok's algorithm to amplify content that promoted division, discord, and distrust in American democratic institutions. The platform wasn't just collecting data on American users, it was actively shaping their political consciousness. The evidence was both sophisticated and devastating. Internal ByteDance communications showed deliberate efforts to suppress content that portrayed China negatively, while boosting videos that criticized American foreign policy, economic inequality, and social divisions. The algorithm had been weaponized to turn America's youth against their own country's values and institutions. For AOC, who had built much of her political brand through viral social media content, the intelligence reports represented something more complex than foreign interference. She had watched TikTok give voice to movements for social justice, economic equality, and political reform that traditional media had ignored or marginalized. The platform had democratized political communication in ways that threatened established power structures. Her response to the ban was swift and strategically calculated. In a series of posts across multiple platforms, she reframed the TikTok shutdown as part of a broader assault on young Americans' political participation. The same politicians who had spent decades ignoring youth concerns about climate change, student debt, and economic inequality were now claiming to protect young people by silencing their primary communication platform. But what made her argument particularly powerful was how she connected the TikTok ban to domestic political suppression. If foreign influence was truly the concern, she argued, why weren't lawmakers addressing the billions of dollars in political spending by foreign-connected corporations, the foreign ownership of major media outlets, or the foreign lobbying that routinely shaped American policy decisions? Candace Owens had been tracking the national security implications of Chinese technology long before TikTok became a household name. Her analysis of the ban was grounded in what she saw as a fundamental failure of American leadership to recognize and respond to sophisticated threats to national sovereignty. Her counter-response to AOC's criticism came in the form of a special Daily Wire investigation that would reach over 8 million viewers in its first week. She didn't dispute AOC's concerns about young Americans losing a platform for political expression. Instead, she completely recontextualized what that expression had actually been accomplishing. The data was stark and undeniable. American teenagers who spent significant time on TikTok showed markedly different attitudes toward their country, their economic system, and their democratic institutions compared to peers who used other social media platforms. They were more likely to view America as fundamentally unjust, capitalism as inherently corrupt, and traditional American values as outdated or harmful. This wasn't happening by accident, Owens argued. It was the result of a deliberate psychological operation designed to undermine American confidence and cohesion. TikTok hadn't just been collecting personal data from American users, it had been harvesting their political consciousness and reshaping it to serve Chinese strategic interests. The evidence she presented was both technical and terrifying. Algorithm analysis showed that content promoting American achievement, entrepreneurship, or patriotic values was systematically deprioritized, while videos emphasizing American failures, inequality, or historical injustices received artificial amplification. The platform had essentially become a machine for generating anti-American sentiment among the nation's youth. But AOC's team had been conducting their own research into TikTok's influence, and their findings complicated the narrative that Owens was promoting. While they acknowledged that the platform's algorithm did appear to amplify divisive content, the same pattern was visible across all major social media platforms, including those owned by American companies. The real issue, from AOC's perspective, wasn't Chinese manipulation of American youth, it was the failure of American institutions to address the legitimate grievances that made young people receptive to critical messages about their country in the first place. If TikTok videos about economic inequality went viral, perhaps the problem was economic inequality, not foreign algorithms. Her analysis went deeper than simple platform criticism. The TikTok ban, she argued, was a convenient distraction from the systematic failures that had created the conditions for foreign influence to be effective. Instead of addressing student debt, climate change, housing costs, or wage stagnation, politicians were blaming a Chinese app for young Americans' lack of faith in their institutions. The debate reached a critical inflection point when both women were invited to testify before a joint session of the House Intelligence and Foreign Affairs Committees. The hearing was supposed to focus on the national security implications of Chinese technology companies. Instead, it became a nationally televised examination of how democracy functions when global technology platforms become tools of geopolitical competition. AOC came prepared with a comprehensive alternative framework for addressing foreign influence without restricting domestic speech. Her proposal included mandatory transparency for all algorithmic recommendation systems, regardless of country of origin. If algorithms were shaping political consciousness, Americans deserved to know exactly how those algorithms worked, what content they promoted, and what interests they served. Her argument was sophisticated and politically astute. Rather than defending TikTok itself, she was defending the principles of free expression and competitive markets that the ban appeared to violate. The issue wasn't whether China posed a strategic threat, but whether America could address that threat without abandoning its own democratic values. Candace Owens approached the same hearing from a fundamentally different philosophical position. Her testimony focused on what she characterized as a naive optimism that had allowed American democratic institutions to be systematically undermined by sophisticated foreign adversaries. The TikTok platform represented a new form of warfare that traditional American political frameworks were completely unequipped to handle. This wasn't about free speech or fair competition, it was about cognitive warfare designed to weaken American social cohesion and political stability from within. She presented classified intelligence that showed how TikTok's influence operations had evolved beyond simple content manipulation. The platform was being used to identify and target young Americans who showed potential for political leadership, subjecting them to sophisticated psychological influence campaigns designed to shape their future political development. The implications were staggering. If foreign adversaries could use social media platforms to identify and influence the next generation of American political leaders during their formative years, traditional concepts of national sovereignty and democratic self-determination became meaningless. Her solution was comprehensive and uncompromising. All technology platforms operated by companies based in authoritarian countries should be banned from the American market, regardless of their specific activities. The risk of foreign manipulation was simply too great to allow any potential avenue for influence to remain open. But she also proposed something that surprised observers on both sides: a massive public investment in American-owned social media platforms that could provide the creative expression and community connection that young Americans were seeking without the national security risks posed by foreign-controlled algorithms. The hearing revealed fundamental disagreements about how democracy should function in an interconnected world. AOC believed that transparency and regulation could allow Americans to benefit from global technology while protecting against foreign manipulation. Owens argued that some risks were simply too great to allow any potential avenue for influence to remain open. But she also proposed something that surprised observers on both sides: a massive public investment in American-owned social media platforms that could provide the creative expression and community connection that young Americans were seeking without the national security risks posed by foreign-controlled algorithms. The hearing revealed fundamental disagreements about how democracy should function in an interconnected world. AOC believed that transparency and regulation could allow Americans to benefit from global technology while protecting against foreign manipulation. Owens argued that some risks were simply too great to allow any potential avenue for influence to remain open. The hearing concluded without resolution, but it crystallized the fundamental tension that would define digital policy for the foreseeable future. American democracy was being forced to adapt to a world where information, influence, and political power could flow across national boundaries in ways that traditional sovereignty concepts couldn't contain. As the immediate controversy over the TikTok ban faded, longer-term patterns began emerging that neither AOC nor Owens had fully anticipated. Young Americans who lost access to TikTok didn't simply migrate to American-owned platforms. Many began using virtual private networks to access the banned platform, creating a generation of Americans whose primary political communication occurred through tools designed to circumvent their own government's policies. The ban had created exactly the kind of antagonistic relationship between young Americans and their government that both women claimed to want to avoid. AOC had argued that banning TikTok would alienate young Americans from democratic institutions. Owens had argued that allowing TikTok to continue would undermine respect for American democratic values. Neither had anticipated that the ban would create a situation where young Americans were actively evading their government's authority to participate in political discourse. The irony was compounded by what happened to political engagement more broadly. Without TikTok's highly engaging algorithm, overall political participation among young Americans actually decreased. The platform that Owens had characterized as a tool for foreign manipulation had also been the primary driver of youth political engagement that AOC had been trying to protect. Meanwhile, alternative social media platforms rushed to fill the void left by TikTok's absence, but none could replicate the unique combination of creative tools, algorithmic engagement, and cultural momentum that had made TikTok politically significant. The American-owned platforms that benefited from the ban offered different experiences that attracted different audiences, fragmenting rather than consolidating the political conversation that had been happening on TikTok. Both women found themselves adjusting their positions as real-world evidence accumulated. AOC began acknowledging that some aspects of TikTok's influence had indeed been problematic, particularly the platform's impact on young Americans' attention spans and their ability to engage with complex political issues. Owens started recognizing that the ban had created new problems around government authority and technological sovereignty that pure security-focused approaches couldn't solve. But these nuanced position adjustments received little attention in a media environment that continued to frame the issue as a simple choice between security and freedom. The TikTok debate had become another front in America's ongoing culture wars, with each side using the platform's fate to advance broader ideological agendas about the role of government, the nature of freedom, and America's relationship with the world. The ultimate outcome was that neither side achieved their stated objectives. The TikTok ban didn't eliminate foreign influence on American political discourse. Instead, it drove that influence into less visible and potentially more dangerous channels. Young Americans still felt alienated from their political institutions, just for additional reasons. The fundamental tensions between freedom and security, between global connection and national autonomy, between technological innovation and democratic governance remained as unresolved as ever. The only certainty was that the TikTok ban had revealed how unprepared American democracy was for the challenges of governing in an age of digital platforms. The questions that AOC and Owens had raised about foreign influence, youth engagement, and technological sovereignty would define political debates for years to come, but the answers remained as elusive as the algorithms that had started the entire controversy.